Welcome to Mindful Life, Mindful Work, Thoughtful Work Thursdays. My name is Jonathan Reynolds. What we do here is really quite simple. It's designed to be Q&A, so for folks to type questions in the comments section about their work and how to approach it mindfully, and then hopefully I can share some reflections that are useful on that. With the absence of any comments, I usually speak on a subject for a few minutes and to see if that provokes any questions. Today, what I'd like to talk about is overwhelm. And we all experience it. We all feel the many distractions and many things coming at us in our work and personal life. And so, how do you actually work with that? How do you actually make do, given that that's not going to stop? That sometimes it's going to be more, sometimes it's going to be less, sometimes we're going to manage it well, sometimes we're going to manage it poorly. But how do we work with that to be our most effective and best selves? And there's no simple answer. Uh, Bringing mindfulness, bringing the capacity to have sustained attention and awareness can be really useful in that it helps us create gaps to choose or to pause. And so, in a certain sense, in a very general sense, mindfulness can be used in this capacity for self-care. And that's very important, that capacity to sort of say, oh, I'm getting overwhelmed. First of all, to notice that I'm getting overwhelmed, that whatever's coming at me is too much, and there will be more coming. And so that capacity to not sort of heap on more problems of our own doing, because there are things in our workday and in our personal life that are going to be coming at us. And again, we can't stop that completely. Sometimes we can take breaks, sometimes we can lessen it. But that capacity to notice ourselves and to see, oh, I'm getting tight in my shoulders, or I feel like heat energy is rising and I'm getting angry, or whatever the case may be, to notice that before it becomes unmanageable, and then manage it when it's small, to sort of nip it in the bud, so to speak. And so body awareness is a big piece of this because we hold a lot of tension and overwhelm and things like that in our body. So growing our body awareness, and one way to do that is like a formal meditation practice or a yoga practice, or there's lots of body practices, things like Tai Chi and the martial arts, of course. But coming home to ourself in this way lets us catch overwhelm in the early stages, and then it is more manageable. Because often what happens is we don't manage it when it's small, and then it becomes a bigger problem. I like to say, sometimes a sore neck doesn't get our attention, but a broken neck always gets our attention. And a sore neck is often the seed of a broken neck. And so, um, and that's just a way to say, of course, that small things are already the precursor to becoming big things. And if it's something we don't want, or if it's something that's challenging, it's important to notice it when it's small and take care of it when it's small. So that's where building in breaks into our day, noticing sort of our body's feedback, noticing, for instance, if we haven't eaten and our sugar level drops, and that's sort of contributing to the overwhelm, do what we can to set a foundation to be able to manage the overwhelm. Because again, we're all going to get overwhelmed, and probably a little bit every day. And so, how do we live in this way that's grounded and sustainable, that we're the most effective teammate to others and to ourselves that we can be? And this is where practice really comes in, because every day is going to be different. We're going to get different stuff. We're going to feel different every day. There's going to be some nights we slept good, or we didn't sleep good, or we had too much caffeine or not enough caffeine. And so this is where it's a real practice around, how am I showing up? How am I relating to sort of a natural level of feeling overwhelmed? Um, when there's too much, we feel overwhelmed. And sometimes when there's too little work, for instance, we feel sort of anxious. Like, what do I do with this time? I don't feel like I have enough, especially if we work for ourselves. Like, oh, I need to create more work. Well, then it's anxiety. So it's a double-edged sword, right? Too much, we get overwhelmed. Too little, we sometimes feel anxious. And so, again, sort of holding this system in a greater spaciousness or a greater awareness. Mindfulness contributes to that. Other things contribute to that. All self-care can support sort of holding this in a greater space. And as a practice, then, as an ongoing sort of development, watching yourself and um, how do I notice? What are the first signs for me to notice that I'm getting a little overwhelmed? Again, for me, I've already mentioned it's sort of this rising heat energy and sort of tightness in my upper body. Or if my list of things that I'm sort of trying to manage all at once, it gets too big, then it starts to feel a little bit overwhelming. And so, uh, and everybody's different, like I said before, how is it for you? Do you notice it the day before? Is it always after meals or before meals? Or maybe there's a pattern. And again, that's another really helpful thing for us each to do, is track how does overwhelm sort of what is the overwhelm cycle or life cycle for me? And where does it begin? If I start to notice patterns, what's sort of the peak, or what's sort of worst case scenario, or what happens if I don't manage it at all or notice it at all? Okay, that's that. And then what's the come down after that? Oh, now I got more work to do because I handled my own overwhelm poorly. I yelled at somebody, or I did something that wasn't, skillful, or I lost the report, or, or it's late, or whatever happens. So again, starting to track and again, noticing in real time. Sometimes we call this tagging, like, oh, I sort of tag. Okay, I'm tagging that I'm tight in the shoulders. Okay, well, it's not even noon yet. Okay, let's watch that throughout the day and see if it gets worse. Do I have a big meeting coming up? Maybe I'm nervous about, or am I nervous about the live stream, or whatever the case may be. Um, Watching it in yourself, seeing how it lives, and then building in little practices. Again, whether that's a few deep breaths, or taking breaks as needed, or making sure that you've eaten healthy or slept well. All of these contribute to how you show up as your best self or not. That's really the end game, right? Is how do you show up as your best self? How do you notice overwhelm and actually use overwhelm as a good tool, as a barometer to say, hey, I'm not showing up as my best self, or I haven't really done the work to sort of create this context in a way that actually works for me. And of course, there's things beyond our control, but much of it is within our capacity to choose, and making good choices around that. So I hope that you found this a little bit helpful in working with any overwhelm you might experience throughout today or other days. Again, my name's Jonathan Reynolds, and this is Mindful Life, Mindful Works, Thoughtful Work Thursdays. We hope to see you again at a future Thursday. Take care.